Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll call roll, and let me remind the commissioners, please be sure your mic is lighted green and speak into the mic for the record. Commissioner Anderson.
Present.
Commissioner Crane.
Present.
Vice Chair Fizer.
Present.
Commissioner Grodzki.
Present.
Commissioner Hanner. Commissioner Meiske.
Present.
Commissioner Sarsfield.
Present.
Ah, come on, get to a microphone. And we're calling roll. Mayor Kirchhoff.
Present.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. There are no personal appearances scheduled this evening. One item on the consent agenda from long ago, acceptance of minutes from our January 20th, 2015 meeting. Unless there are any concerns about the minutes, I would either entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda or approve the minutes as presented.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I
Anderson.
move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner Meiske to approve consent agenda as presented. Sound right? All those in favor, raise a hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. 8 in favor, none opposed, and no abstentions. And we have nothing this evening in old business, so we'll move right on into new business. Our first case this evening, case 15003, Raymore Office Building at 1006 West Foxwood Drive, and this is for the site plan. And if the applicant would like to come forward to the podium, present your case, please.
All right. Good evening. My name is Edward Keating with Gunther Mills Keating Architects.
Double check, is the light green?
Yes.
Okay, sorry,
Yes.
we're just having a little trouble hearing you. Okay, that's all right.
Can you hear me now?
A little louder would be great.
All
Don't
right,
strain your
sorry
voice.
about that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
The project that we're presenting tonight is a single-story, slab-on-grade, B occupancy office building, proposed office building, multi-tenant, at least at this point, and Jim's got it up on here. It is on, if you're familiar, I'm sure you all are, over here next to the bank.
Right.
We are on the lot immediately to the west of where the bank sits on the corner.
Mhm.
The building will front to the west, and the parking along the west side with access off Remington Plaza. The building size is 11,238 square feet. Again, it's a multi-tenant building. At this point, there will be 4 occupants in it that are already planned into the building. Professional, real estate, and insurance, and attorney, and mortgage underwriter. The building itself, and I brought these couple larger photos. The building exists over in one similar to it in Leawood.
Oh.
Same pattern, same design, basically. Very light and airy building, has a lot of windows. Again, a craftsman style. The entire perimeter of the building is stone up to a height of 8'6", and from that point on up is stucco and trimmed. The stucco areas are trimmed. The beam pieces that you see come out, extend out beyond the overhang of the building. They serve a dual purpose. Besides the aesthetics of the building, they also house the downspouts. The guttering goes to those points, and they conceal the downspouts for the building, so that basically the building doesn't appear, it'll appear to have gutters, but doesn't appear to have downspouts on the outside of it, because they're all captured within the outside wall. Landscaping on it will be well landscaped. We have a trash enclosure and unit screens for the HVAC equipment that match the same stone material that's on the building, as well as patio areas out on the back side of the building for the office people that will be in it, for them to use. And again, the building's going to be heavily landscaped, just given trying to create a really nice appearance at that location, especially given its tie-in to the bank. Not sure, and then sidewalk connections, obviously, to the existing street sidewalks on both 58 and on Remington Plaza. Is there any questions?
Well, I do have one, if you don't mind right
Sure.
now. Just before I forget it. So, looking at sheet L1, the landscape layout, and it does look like it's planned to be very nicely landscaped. I was trying to figure out, I see a line which is utility easement, but somewhere else it's labeled a PL. Is the trash enclosure up there?
Yes, within the property line boundaries.
Oh, okay, I'm mistaken. So your trash enclosure is in the property line.
Yes.
That
I'm
thing,
sorry, yeah, that's the one.
that's the banks.
That's the banks,
Thank you,
yes.
that,
No problem.
that clears it all up. I kinda looked at that and it was like, that's great, thank you.
One of the other issues that came up in reviewing this drive, there is a drive that will connect the bank parking lot with this parking lot. That was a requirement asked for by the fire department.
Yeah.
As an additional access to site, but also feel like it's a good community attachment to this
Right.
property, to the bank, so.
Yeah.
And
We
they
do
have
like-
an agreement with the bank for additional parking use over there if they need
Okay.
it, so.
Yeah, we do like connectivity, so
Yes.
appreciate that. Okay,
All right.
thank you. Mr. Carteret, if you would, give us the staff report, please.
Yes, sir, thank you. And Mr. Keating, representing the applicants, did an excellent job in going over the proposed concept, so I'll try not to duplicate anything that he went over. Here on the aerial, just identifying again, this particular lot is part of the Remington Commercial subdivision, and it's actually Lot 9. If this lot gets developed, then there's one remaining undeveloped lot, which would be adjacent Lot 8 in Remington Plaza. And then, of course, when the Pathways project came forward to you a couple years ago on the north side of Remington, they still have a portion of their property right along Johnston Drive that could be developed in the future. In your packet, I included some photographs of the site. Just, I'm sure you're all familiar with the property, but just to give you the general slope and layout of the property and the adjacent buildings. The property is zoned C3, which is our regional commercial district, which does allow for the use of offices as a permitted use. The property is just under 1 acre. It's at 0.97 acres in size. The property has had its commercial zoning since 1996. This particular lot, Lot 9, did come forward to you as a replat, most recently back in September of 2014. This was a replat where we had to identify the actual dimensions of all the property lines that were inadvertently left off of the initial recorded plat. And then it was mentioned with the Country Club Bank to the east. That particular project came forward through the commission back in 2004. Under Engineering Division comments, I do want to note that this is a little bit different project coming forward to you for review this evening. Initially, when the plans were submitted to staff, of course, all the required engineering drawings were submitted. In this particular example, there's no public infrastructure being constructed. So the water line, sewer line connection are all going to be private. All the public lines are in place, no additional streets being constructed. But we still require engineering review, of course, of stormwater treatment, and the overall site layout. Due to circumstances that were beyond the control of the applicant in this instance, there was an unfortunate situation that happened with their engineer that initially submitted the drawings, was unable to do the revisions that were necessary. We provided a list of comments to the applicant. I provided you a copy at your desk this evening. And so in working with the city engineer's office, Mr. Hines and Mr. Krass and myself, decided to allow the applicant additional time because they had to find a new engineer to step in and complete the revisions. Did not feel that the comments that we had were significant enough to postpone the delay of the site plan. What we are recommending to the commission is we actually added as conditions that we want to have those comments sent in back to the engineering staff to have their approval before any site work can be commenced. We thought that was a fair resolution to the situation, and so that is our recommendation. You'll see when I get to the conditions. A few items under staff comments. This particular project would be the first one, site plan, that actually take advantage of the ability to place the building closer to 58 Highway. Our standard setback is 30 feet, but we did amend the code where we wanted to allow buildings to be closer to the highway if there was no parking or drive access between the building and the street. It had to be landscaped area. So in this particular instance, it has helped the overall site, especially with the connection with the fire lane, to allow the building to be moved closer to 58 Highway. So the actual setback of the building will be 17 feet from the property line, outside of any easements, and they are providing the landscaping that is necessary between the building and the street. As far as parking, based upon office use and square footage of the building, they're required to have 37 spaces. They are providing 37 spaces. And 2 of those spaces are required to be ADA accessible. They have met that requirement. They're exceeding the landscaping provisions of our code. We require 20% of the sided landscaping. They're providing 34% with the required perimeter landscaping. They're providing a 10-foot area all around the site. The building design, it's very nice design. It is in compliance with our building design standards. Pedestrian access, they have 2 street frontages they need to connect to. And so they are providing the connection to the existing sidewalk along 58 Highway. And then they will be required to extend the sidewalk that currently ends there on the Country Club Bank property. They'll extend that sidewalk further to the west and make the connection to that sidewalk as well. As far as building signage, on the building elevation that they submitted, they do show examples of what they intend to do as signage. We, of course, do not approve signage as part of site plan. They are not currently on the site plan showing a monument sign, but they would be allowed to install a monument sign if they wanted to. Based upon the 4 tenants, their monument sign could be 48 square foot in size and 6 foot tall. As was mentioned, the fire district did review the site plan, and their one comment was to make sure there was connectivity between the parking lot of Country Club Bank and their parking lot, which they are providing. Under stormwater management, this particular project in Remington does utilize the the stormwater system that's already in place. So basically, they'll be connecting to an inlet that does drain down to the Remington Lake. The Remington Lake is the detention facility for all of Remington, excuse me, and it is sized to handle the additional stormwater from this particular site. What they'll also need to do, and part of the comments from the engineering division was they do have to do some on-site stormwater treatment. So they do have some provisions, and they have to provide some more information to the city regarding how they're treating the water on-site before they release it to the inlet. So that's one of the comments we're still working through. And again, this is the first project that falls under our stormwater treatment ordinance. Regarding site lighting, they have a site lighting plan, and it is in conformance with all of our light performance standards. Excuse me. The trash enclosure does meet our requirements as far as being compatible with the materials of the building. Staff, again, has submitted proposed findings of fact for your consideration on the application. And then staff does recommend approval of the site plan for Lot 9 in Remington. We do request that recommendation is subject to a total of 12 conditions. We break them down to those conditions that have to be met prior to commencement of any land disturbance activities, and those would be the items regarding the comments from the engineering division. Prior to issuance of a building permit, they have to submit the building construction plans and have those approved by our building official. A number of conditions prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy, including all the work meeting compliance with approved site plan, as well as the necessary ADA compliance in the parking lot area. And then we have 3 standard conditions that we use. We call them perpetual conditions regarding erosion control and monitoring of any potential illicit discharge that could happen on the property. So those are standard conditions we put on all the site plans. So that concludes staff report at this time, and you certainly welcome any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Cataract. So let me just remind the commission, including myself, site plan does not require public hearing, and action of the commission is final. These don't go on to the city council after we hear the case. So having said that, I'll open the floor for any discussion, questions from the commissioners. All quiet on the eastern front. Commissioner Anderson.
That's right. I think it's more of a comment, and I guess something that, somewhat disturbs me. It's that, as we have, and again, this is a great, at least design here, but the concern is that we are not being consistent in terms of the new construction that we have. So we have the Country Club Bank has a different type of design, and we have this proposed design, and we have another lot, so who knows what's going there. So I guess a comment to the commission that we need to make sure that we're mindful of the designs that we have with the new buildings that we are constructing here. It's just no consistency.
Right. And comment noted, Mr. Cataract, I think actually if anybody would have a comment to Commissioner Anderson's concern, I'm gonna pose that to you.
As I understand the comment, I made an earlier statement that the proposed building meets our building design standards, which it does.
Right.
We have some generic standards as far as percentage of the building that needs to be masonry, four-sided architecture, et cetera. So it does comply with those standards. If I understand the comment right, but there's some separation, if you would, between the design of the buildings. We have multiple different designs of buildings in the city, so maybe if I interpret your comment correctly, Commissioner Anderson, is we don't have uniformity with our standard building to building. Not that everyone needs to look alike, but there is a huge differentiation, even building to building within a subdivision, and I think that's kind of your comment. The 3 buildings here between Loris and Johnston Drive, all very, very different buildings.
I think that's my thought too. It would be nice if somebody had deep enough pockets to develop Remington commercial all at once, then it would probably be a little more consistent. Willow Wind has a consistency there, but I think the reality of it is, especially after the great bust of 2008, the reality of it is that we're developing as we go, and it's a nice looking building. It'll be interesting to see. You know, I'm not sure if I had a business in one of these buildings, do I want to blend in or do I want to stand out? I think this is very definitely a tasteful conservative design, and I don't really have a lot of concern with the bank on the corner being different, being unique, but you know, it would be nice if Lot 8 would develop with a consistent style of architecture. Beyond our control, unfortunately. Any other comments, Mr. Carteret?
Just, that actually is a good observation. The layout of the lot will lend itself to a similar configuration as the building that we're seeing on Lot 9. Not that it's a guarantee, but just because of its orientation, and access coming only off of Remington Plaza, you may see a very similar style, you know, building, because this one has a totally different orientation, of course, than the Country Club Bank.
Right.
So there may be some compatibility there.
Or the commercial buildings on across the street to the north.
Correct.
And those, I think, are actually fairly consistent, fairly, you know, the buildings are different, but the look and feel is very similar.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Good observation, Commissioner Anderson. Other questions, comments? Anybody brave enough to make a motion on case 15003, and when you do, be sure and note that there are 12 conditions here.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Anderson.
I move that we accept the staff proposed finding of fact and approved case 15003, Raymore Office Building Site Plan, subject to the 12 conditions as presented.
Yeah.
Second.
Commissioner Crane? Yeah, thank you. So let's see if I can restate that nicely. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner Crane, to accept staff proposed findings of fact on case 15003, Raymore Office Building, 1006 West Foxwood Drive, site plan, and approve the case subject to the 12 noted conditions. Mr. Zer, does that sound legal?
Sounds great. My only comment would be to make sure the applicant is good with the 12 conditions.
Right?
Excellent.
No surprises there, I hope. So is there any further discussion on the motion before we take a vote? Yeah? Yeah. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hey, I got 8 again. 8 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing this building. And as I shuffle paper a little bit here, our next case this evening is more in the line of our homework, internal. And so that is an amendment, a long overdue update to the bylaws of the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. What do you think, Mr. Carteret? Would you like to present this?
Certainly, thank you, sir.
By the way, spiral mint?
Yeah, I've got cough drops in
Oh,
my
do you?
pocket, so maybe I should have taken one.
Okay, well,
When I wasn't talking, I apologize.
I felt bad for you a little bit ago, so I was just offering to help.
No trouble all day, and then once you start talking, it just
Well,
goes.
of course.
The bylaws of the Planning and Zoning Commission were last reviewed by the commission, last amended back in March of 2004. And for several years since then, and especially after the adoption of the UDC, staff has desired to have the commission review the bylaws again for reasons of consistency and appropriateness. There are noted by staff some provisions in the bylaws that actually are not consistent with our UDC. So staff did bring this forward to the commission at its February 17th work session. And I know some of you were at that meeting where we considered a draft that staff had proposed just for discussion purposes for the commission. At the conclusion of that work session, staff was directed to incorporate the suggested changes that were made during that work session and bring forward an amendment for your consideration. And that is what we have done this evening. So I did provide you a copy first of the actual adopted bylaws that we have, as well as a excerpt out of our Unified Development Code, Chapter 465, which deals with the duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Then I gave you a red and blue lined version of the bylaws, and I kept the language that staff had initially recommended was in red font, and I kept all that language in here, and then if there were any proposed deletions of language staff had proposed, I simply crossed out in red. And then there were some areas where the commission has suggested changes, and I added that text in blue, hoping that there's a lot of different colors and crossouts on this, but hopefully that identified the changes that we made from the work session. I did consult with Mr. Zur after the meeting on a few of the changes, and we believe that what we're proposing, at least in the blue font, was what was recommended by the commission, but we're certainly open to any comments and further revisions that you would have. It would be our intent then, if you do approve the amendment this evening, then we'll reprint out a clean copy of the new rules of procedure for your package at your next meeting, and have that available on the website as well for others to see. I would also then update the what we call meeting procedures that we include on the agenda. There's a few words that we would need to change on that, just so the public is kept aware of what the procedures are when attending one of our commission meetings. So staff's open to any comments you may have then on the proposed amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Carteret. So, commissioners, questions, comments? Yep, looks like real accurate capture of our work session.
Yeah.
What? Oh, I couldn't remember who was and who wasn't. There's just one thing that I thought about a minute ago, and it hasn't jumped out at me. Okay. I like it. Do those of you who were not present at the work session have any questions about this, or does it look pretty straightforward? I will say, Mr. Carteret, correct me if you feel otherwise, we really just kind of follow the bylaws by habit. You know, it's nice that they're documented. I think we discovered at the work session that my copy of the bylaws were 2 years earlier than the latest ones in 2004, but, you know, bottom line is it's kind of been standard practice, but as you noted, for us, obviously with adoption of the UDC and other changes, the bylaws had become woefully out of date if somebody took a close look at them. So I think pretty much the bylaws as presented tonight actually reflect the way we've been doing business recently. It's not really any significant changes. Mr. Zer, would you agree? Yeah. So it pretty much just documents how we've been doing business most recently.
One thing if I may, the one thing that
Yes, of course.
will do with if we approve the amendment, we have a developers and a applicant's packet that we do provide. And so including these in there, the applicant would be able to see what our rules would, you know, what rules to follow as far as process of that. I don't know that they read our entire packet, but at least it's available to them and we make them aware of it ahead of time.
Right. Yeah, we'll take our chances. If a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, we could put ourselves at risk. But I think generally, you know, the meeting's conducted in a very open fashion. The rules are pretty well understood. We try to be as flexible as we can and keep the meeting going and preserve a semblance of order.
As you always say, that's why we have Mr. Zer too.
Absolutely.
Keep us in line, so.
And of course, Mr. Zer is our parliamentarian for all practical purposes and does a fine job.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Anderson.
Question in, I guess, Article 9, I guess the new Article 9, the last, I guess the paragraph there regarding consultants to aid in its work. So
Right.
just have a question, well, I guess a question that being, what was the genesis or the reasoning behind the inclusion of that?
Actually, so I may have been the culprit. I really don't remember. I'm going to plead innocent. But under the old Article 8, struck through in black, the commission may employ staff personnel and/or consultants. And so the first new draft as presented to us actually deleted that without anything corresponding. And if you think back to, not the annual updates of the growth management plan, but on 5-year intervals, whatever, the significant updates to the growth management plan, where we very clearly have brought in consultants. Of course, we have to get council approval to spend the money, but, you know, I felt it was important to keep the mention of consultants there. You know, leaving it out probably wouldn't have been a prohibition, but I thought it was more clear actually making mention of the fact that we can, when appropriate, and of course with council approval, bring consultants in. So that was the rationale.
So should it be a standalone as is or as another bullet item?
I'm fine with it just as a paragraph. The bullet items really are staff, and the consultant is a separate item. So I like it as another paragraph. Yeah, but you know, feel free to take a different position.
No, it just kind of stood out there. So
Yeah.
just-
Well, it's that handsome blue, isn't it? Yeah. Commissioner Grodzki.
Yeah, I know you always ask individuals who are coming up to address us to give their address, and I see that you've added as a requirement.
Well, point us to the
Oh,
paragraph.
sorry,
Just-
Article 8, Section 2.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, I mean, I'm kind of a private person, so I would hesitate to give my address, and if we're saying they must state their name and address for the record, I'm just
It's
curious.
pretty much standard practice, but I don't know, Mr. Cataret or Mr. Zer, for the record, and I don't know that we've ever had a case where someone has specifically noted, you know, that they don't wish to give their addressed publicly, but, you know, I don't think that we'd have a serious problem if someone specifically did not want to note their address. I know people do have post office boxes and things for the protection of their privacy. Mr. Zur, Mr. Cataret, you want to decide who to address that?
We have asked them to provide their names consistently, and I think from a business standpoint, most of the individuals that come forward, whether that be engineers or applicants, are giving business addresses. I am fine with the prospect that if one of the individuals came forward and indicated they had concerns or qualms with regard to giving their address, I think a lot of times we use that for purposes of making sure if it's an individual who's coming forward to oppose, that they are actually members of the city at the end of the day, so they've got some justifiable reason to be able to oppose the proposed application.
Well, to me, it
And it's
clarifies
noticed.
too, you know, some of us have names that are fairly unique. There may only be one of us in Raymore, and then, you know, someone coming to the podium, John Smith, we could have two or three. The address identifies the individual. To me, Mr. Zur, it's more a matter of public record. And as Commissioner Grodzki noted, if you don't really want all of your contact information out in the public record, name might be sufficient. I'm not sure what we would do if someone came to the podium and said, I'd like to speak, but I want to wear a bag over my head. I think that would actually make me really nervous.
I think that would really bring into question the veracity of their testimony as well, too. But I'm okay on the notion of providing the name. It doesn't keep me up late at night on the notion of if someone wanted to change the language in order to indicate that they shall provide their name. I think we do need that at the very least, and recommended that they provide their address for the record, but it doesn't hang me up at all.
It's been standard practice for as long as I can remember. That I think I'd prefer we go one of two ways. We can either strike address from that clause, or as a matter of practice, I think it would certainly be allowable for a speaker to withhold their address. You know, I don't think that would give us any major heartburn.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to see
Commissioner
us
Crane.
keep the address in
Okay.
and handle it on an exception basis.
Right, fine. Commissioner Sarsfield?
Concerning the address,
Microphone, please.
concerning the address, I can understand they might want to not let people know exactly what street they live on, but are you a resident of Raymore?
Yeah, certainly that.
You know, I mean, you could be from another city or whatever, and you're complaining about something that really doesn't
Sure.
affect you
And-
directly, but indirectly.
And by the way, I would note that there are cases, the stormwater management, we had people speaking from surrounding communities as experts or interested parties. You know, I certainly wouldn't want to discourage that. Also, we've really not had a lot of cases that occurred right on the city limits of Raymore, but there are certainly cases where interested parties are going to be just outside the city limits. So I think I like Commissioner Crane's thought of dealing with it as an exception rather than just striking the word address. But, you know, I'm perfectly willing to do a straw poll here, show of hands, if we've got a couple of different viewpoints to consider. Commissioner Meiske?
Well, if I understand the issue here, it's the word must. Okay?
Right.
Okay, how about if we change that to will?
I'm going to
Will,
consult
must, and
Mr.
shall.
Zur.
Okay.
Will, must, and shall won't impact the change.
Okay,
What you would suggest doing there, if you're trying to make it an optional choice, would be remove must and insert may. I'm not so sure you necessarily want to do that at that location, because we do want to get at least the statement of their names. I think that is I would note that the name and address we've had in all of the cities that
Right.
we've represented, that's a pretty standard procedure at the end of the day.
Mr.
If you wanted to
Zur?
make the change,
Yeah.
yes.
Let me try a thought on you. You're our highly paid legal representation, but let me try a thought on you. So I'm not sure that this is the specific wording, but what I'm thinking about on section 2 is individuals wishing to speak to the commission must, well, and I don't know about the word must, but, and are requested to state their name and address for the record. In other words, I'm getting away from the shall or the should and just saying, and are requested to state their name and address for the record. It's not
does
as,
make an-
it's
that does-
not as mandatory.
That makes all of it as an optional at that point, so name would be, name would be optional as well as the address under that term.
Bottom line, I'm not sure it's really any different than today. We request the applicant to state their name and address for the record. If they choose not to, we really are not gonna force them to. I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Zer?
My only comment would have been if you were trying to do the address, if you want to keep the name and have the address be an optional or recommended, you do a must proceed to the podium and state their name and are recommended to provide the address for the record.
Or requested to
Or
provide their address.
And requested to provide their
Yeah.
address for the record.
I'm really stuck on the word requested. My apologies.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted, I mean, if we handle it on a case-by-case basis, I didn't know how strict we were going to stick to that, because if we keep must in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the environment that you and I work in
Yeah.
must is
Yes, you have
pretty
to do it,
mandatory.
yes.
Commissioner Crane, you wanted to keep the address in. Could you live with the word and are requested to provide their address for the record?
I personally think that's too wishy-washy. I mean, we can go on an exception basis if they come up and they say, I'd rather not give my address because I have a stalker that's about
Yeah.
to kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could go
Or a restraining order,
with that.
whatever.
But I think request,
Yeah.
I want to know who's given the testimony.
You mean you don't know all 20,000 residents of Raymore yet?
No, I don't.
Not quite.
Not quite.
And we keep adding more. Let's do this. If commission is comfortable with this, I want to do this in 2 stages. So regarding Article 8, Section 2, do we agree as a commission that an individual wishing to speak must state their name? Raise a hand if you don't agree with that statement. Okay, now, so the only thing, and I'm just going to do this straw poll for the moment. So commissioners that feel that a speaker must also state their address for the record, raise a hand, please. Yeah, well, the podium was kind of a given.
Must
Isn't
must
that
unless they have a good excuse.
Okay, I see, yeah.
Is that their full address?
You
Or-
know, I'd say, you know,
I'm Bill Smith from Raymore.
I mean, yeah, really, let's not get too nitpicky here, but what's to stop an individual from coming to the podium and identifying themselves as Jonathan Zur, 1234 Independence Avenue in Raymore? I don't think we've got an Independence Avenue, do we? We might catch that, but seriously, you know, we're not gonna look for an ID or whatever, I don't think. So there's a practical limit to how far I think this should be carried. But to answer whose ever question, so I'm working under the assumption individuals wishing to speak to the commission must proceed or shall proceed to the podium and state their name for the record. I'm working under the assumption that that is a given. So now the question is, would those commissioners who feel like the speaker must state their address for the record, give me a show of hands, please. No. Those this question is those commissioners who feel like a speaker must also state their address for the record. Raise a hand, please. I just want to get a straw poll. So, wow, the left side is, so I got basically, I've got 5 out of 8 that feel like must. And then, as Commissioner Crane said, we'll deal with a reluctant speaker as an exception. So, sorry. We're in the minority.
That just thought I'd ask.
Can we live with democratic process?
Chairman?
Mr. Zur?
Jim and I
Mr.
were also,
Carteret?
Jim and I were also talking about that, sorry, Mr. Carteret and I were also speaking about this shortly. I think that he has in the past utilized addresses for purposes of further notification
Sure.
following meetings at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Which they could still provide that, I guess, off the record if they wanted
Yeah.
to do so. It would be one of those things that
Yeah.
we'd have to ask. But it noted that sometimes these addresses are helpful.
Right.
It's not just for the sake of having it on the
Oh, yeah.
record. I understand
And-
Commissioner Grodzki's concern, and honestly,
Yeah.
I could see that in today's world where we've got protective orders for individuals,
Oh, yeah.
and we've got concerns with stalkers. I think that's an absolutely valid concern. I think it's something that we would deal with right here at the podium, where it's
Right.
have got a real concern with providing this information.
I have 2 daughters, probably close in age to you, and I understand the concern
Right.
completely.
Yeah, not necessarily a stalker, just, single
Self-
girls living home
self-preservation.
alone. Sure.
Mr.
Right.
Chairman,
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Crane.
they can give us a post office box. That's an address,
It's-
mailing
It's
address.
contact information.
And if we have to, we can hang out at the post office until we see them, so. But,
Yeah,
I
we're
mean,
not
I think
gonna
they
do
need to
that.
give us some way to get in contact.
Yeah, well, I think based on the straw poll, which wasn't real heavily one way or the other, but based on the straw poll, 5 out of 8, I think we'll proceed with section 2 as worded. And if you really hate it, you can vote against adopting the new bylaws. But, I think that's how we proceed from here. So, great discussion. What else do you see in the draft bylaws that we should talk about?
There's so many things that. I have
But you know what I mean.
Anything you want to share?
No.
Darn. Okay.
He's
Yeah,
my
is
tutor.
is anyone brave enough to make a motion to adopt the new bylaws?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Crane?
I move we adopt the new bylaws. Rules of procedure, excuse me.
I second the motion.
Right, you're gonna have to whop me upside of the head because you're right, rules of procedure, new title, but it may take a while. And I think that was a second from Commissioner Sarsfield, right?
Correct.
Okay, so motion on the floor to adopt the new rules of procedure by Commissioner Crane, second by Commissioner Sarsfield. Is there any further discussion before we take a vote on it? Okay. All those in favor of adoption, raise a hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow, makes it easy. 8 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. So, thank you very much for that. And Mr. Zur, the next item on our agenda is a city council report or several.
Thank you, Chairman. I have 2 this evening for you that Mr. Willarth has provided, and as always, I would invite the mayor as well as Mr. Carteret to voice in any alterations or corrections, since I was not actually present in person, and sometimes I can't read Mr. Willarth's writing. So that in mind, I will open it up to that kind of correction as well. I have 2. The first is from Monday, February 9th, 2015, City Council meeting. At that meeting, spoke with Mr. Willarth and had the opportunity to discuss. You would have recalled the Golden Corral sign conditional use permit, which would have allowed for an increase of the Golden Corral sign by 2 feet. That was unanimously denied by the City Council as well, so it did not get its increase in height as requested and as presented to you. You'll recall that was a vote of 6 to 8 disapproving that one at Planning and Zoning Commission as well. There was also a preliminary plat extension for the Raymore Galleria North. This was originally sought for a 2-year extension. It was approved by the City Council by unanimous vote for a 1-year extension as opposed to the 2-year sought. I also have a note on here, and Mr. Woolworth circled it and highlighted it for me, with regard to an award of a contract regarding the Farmers Market Phase 1 site work. It's my understanding that the improvements will include a concrete pad, patio, parking stalls, and sidewalk, and that was approved by a vote of 7-0. That is all I have with regard to the City Council report for the February 9th, 2015 meeting. Follow-up to that was a February 23rd, 2015 meeting. In the course of that one, we had one of our most important aspects here, the appointment of Mr. Sarsfield to serve on our commission, was approved on the evening of the 23rd. We also have a follow-up with regard to the award of the contract for the market Phase 1. That was a second, unfinished business and second reading for the market. The final item I've got with regard to matters to occur on the February 23rd meeting was a first reading for the preliminary plat extension of Alexander Creek, and this one again was for a 1-year extension of the preliminary plat. It was approved by a vote of 7-0. That is the extent of my City Council report. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to have any correction or additional input from the Mayor and Mr. Carteret.
Anything to add? No? Thank you, Mr. Zur. We'll go ahead to the staff report and planning pipeline, Mr. Carteret.
Yes, sir. Here we go. Thank you. On the farmers market award of contract, that was for the site work to commence. Following the award of that contract, I believe this next meeting will be the award of contract for the actual pavilion building, the actual covered. It'll be a building very, I shouldn't say similar to the Lion Shelter, but it'll be roofed. It'll have a railroad theme to it. We just weren't able to do the award of contract for the building at the same time as the site. But we are moving forward with that. So that'll be the first phase of the farmers market property. That work is concentrated to the, what would be the, I guess the eastern end of the property, and where the old J.C. Park was located at. That would be the second phase where we'll come along and propose a actual playground, a new playground facility for that location. Hopefully soon, as soon as next year would, hopefully, but I don't have the definite on that. But we are fortunately moving forward with the project, so we're very excited about that, and the work should be all completed under contract before the farmers market opens for the pad site and all that work. So rather ambitious, but that's our schedule. Regarding upcoming meetings of the commission, your next meeting is March 17th. We do have a public hearing scheduled for that evening. It is a proposed rezoning application. I have been working with the applicant on the application regarding putting together a staff report and the information that the applicant has submitted. Good neighbor meeting has been held. I will be preparing the staff report, but I will not be at the meeting on the 17th.
Oh,
it will
right.
be presented by Mr. Warder, who works in my office. He's actually the building official for the city, but I have the advantage that he has a planning degree, so occasionally he has presented staff reports to the commission before on projects. So I've asked him to fill in for me that evening. We certainly are working on the application together and looking at it. He'll be very familiar with the project. The applicant was aware of my absence from the meeting, but felt very comfortable in moving forward. So we're moving forward with that scheduled public hearing on the 17th. Your April 7th meeting will be canceled. That is election day for the city, so the council chambers is used as a voting precinct. And then your April 21st meeting, we do not have any items scheduled for that meeting. I do want to note that Commissioner Meiske and myself will be absent if we have a meeting that evening. That is the last day actually for the American Planning Association conference. So Mr. Meiske will be going to that. That conference begins on the Saturday. It looks like it's April 17th. It actually runs through the 21st. So we'll have to have some discussion if the commission wants to have a meeting that evening in our absence.
What's our deadline for submittals for that meeting? I guess what I'm wondering is, would we know by March 17th meeting or not?
March 20th is actually the filing
Okay.
deadline.
So I think for now, I'd kind of recommend we should keep that date open. I don't really want to turn away an applicant with a case, and we'll determine how to proceed if necessary.
I agree, yes, thank you.
Okay, sure.
That's all I had for staff reports, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll open the floor for public comment. And seeing only one in the public, but, you know, this is your opportunity to come forward to the podium if you'd like to bend our ear. And seeing no one, I'll open the floor for comments by the commissioner, by the commissioners, plural. And if you don't mind, I think I'll pick on you first, Commissioner Meiske.
No comment.
That was too easy. Commissioner Grodzki.
No comment.
All right, Commissioner Anderson.
No comment this evening.
Wow, we're on a roll. Okay. I should know to leave the mayor till the last, so I think I'll just keep on going. Vice Chair Pfizer.
I was gonna say no comment, but I'd like to welcome, I'm gonna get your name wrong, just like all of our names.
Joe Sarsfield.
Sarsfield? Okay.
Right.
So welcome, Commissioner Sarsfield.
Thank you.
Appreciate
That's my only
that.
comment.
No, that was a good comment. I'm glad somebody finally spoke. Secretary Crane?
Welcome, Joe.
All right. We're not going to let you quite get the last word in yet, but Commissioner Sarsfield, welcome aboard, and this is your turn at the microphone.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for welcoming me, and I plan to do everything I can to work together and get things accomplished. Thank you again.
Sounds good to me. Mayor Kirkhoff?
Nothing tonight.
Oh, wow, I'm crushed. I sound like a broken record. We know what I always say, but the fact that I almost always say it should not diminish the significance. Thank you to staff. Mr. Cataret, our two for the price of one secretaries this evening. And it'll take me a little while with the name. I know you're a familiar face. And Mr. Zur, Mr. Eanes, thank you very much. I truly do not think the commission could do its work without the support that we receive from staff. And I never, ever take that for granted. So we appreciate your time. It's another night away from home. And thank you very much. If any of the other commissioners want to say anything before we take a motion to adjourn, otherwise I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Crane, second by Commissioner Meiske to adjourn. All those in favor, raise a hand, please. And, yeah, I count 9, but it's 8 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. Nice. Where are those hands coming?
It's almost like a whisper.
Yeah, that was
A
good.
forced whisper. And you sounded the same way, that's why I asked.
I have an unofficial question. Well, sort of unofficial. What do we do with all this stuff? Do we hand it in